They're going to be in a war soon. And if Mr. Trump listens to Netanyahu, they want to use you to fight America's war. But it's not America's war, it's Israel's war. And when you say, Mr. Trump, America first, ask any Jew, even your son-in-law. America is never first. Israel is always first. And as long as Israel is first, then whatever you think or plan will be in Israel before you leave the room of the White House. Mr. Trump, you have to extricate yourself from being controlled by any one of these.
Let me set up what Farrakhan actually said, because his analysis goes deeper than just military strategy. In archive speeches, he said, America's about to go to war, and when she goes to war, she wants black and brown bodies. Now you're useful. They don't give a damn about how black lives matter until they want to use black lives to accomplish their wicked ends. He warned that this war would be fought disproportionately by black and brown soldiers, while the wealthy who started it remained saved. Black Americans make up approximately 17% of active duty military, despite being 13% of the population. The prophecy about who bears the cost is documented in a casualty statistics. He also said, you can't win being a Turk. You can't win going around the world taking what doesn't belong to you. Your time is up. And now Trump is begging for a ceasefire.
In the Middle East is pulled by you using your surrogates at the insistence of Israel. Then the war will trigger another kind of war which will bring China, Russia, all of the nations into a war. And it bothers me to say this to you, Mr. President, but the war will end America as you know it. These sanctions are the predicate for a new war, a war in the Middle East that would be a trigger to the greatest war that has ever been, the war of Armageddon spoken of in the Bible.
When a prophet warns a president for years that going to war with Iran will bankrupt America, kill thousands of soldiers, and create enemies that cannot be defeated with missiles. When he says, leave Iran alone, you cannot win this, your debt is too high, your military is designed for the wrong kind of war. When he prophesies that Americans' arrogance will produce humiliation on the world stage, and then that president ignores every warning, assassinates Iran's supreme leader, start the biggest military conflict since Iraq, and within weeks is privately begging for a ceasefire through back channels while publicly claiming victory, that's prophecy fulfilled in real time. And Minister Louis Farrakhan told you exactly how this would end before the first bomb dropped. The question isn't whether he was right. The question is why Americans keep ignoring the prophets who tell them the truth. Hey, this is the Books of Blacks, where we connect prophetic wisdom to present geopolitical reality and show you the receipts in real time. If you have been watching Trump, Iran's war go from we designated them to let's talk about a ceasefire in a matter of weeks. If you have been watching the gap between the public victory narrative and the private desperation grow wider every day, hit that subscribe button right now, because we are about to break down why Minister Farrakhan saw this coming, why Trump feared Iran before the first strike, and why the ceasefire begging is the most important confirmation of prophetic accuracy we have seen in modern American history.
Let's break down why no one has ever attacked Iran and why they say that it is not like any other Middle Eastern country. And part 2 on why this will be really bad for the American empire. I I do not see Iran stopping anytime soon, despite calls for a ceasefire. It's because Iran does not trust diplomacy with the United States and Israel. Last year, when Iran was negotiating with Israel and the United States, during negotiation, Israel hits Iran. And then again in 2026, during negotiations, the United States and Israel bombs Iran again. So Iran does not trust a ceasefire or negotiations with the United States or Israel. And it will be Iran's goal to make sure that these countries can never attack Iran again. Now, why is the United States doing this? At the fall of every empire, you see sloppiness, you see nepotism, and you see arrogance. We saw this with the fall of the Roman Empire, the Spanish Empire, the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was no longer about meritocracy. When Trump fired dozens of senior career diplomats, 1,300 State Department employees, many of whom were Middle East and counter-terrorist experts. When the FBI fires counterintelligence agents with expertise in Iran, this is what it looks like to lose regional expertise that was built over decades. That deep knowledge of the region disappears. You get weaker intelligence analysis, and you'll rely more on political advisors instead of subject matter experts. And before I get into why no one has ever attacked Iran in the modern political climate, I just want to say that I do not support the Islamic Republic. And I also do not support the bombing of my country, I'm Iranian, by the United States and Israel. I've seen what US liberation looks like in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. Do I have hope that maybe something good may come of this? Of course, I'm human. But rarely do you see freedom delivered by the oppressor. Okay, now let's get into the country of Iran. It is fundamentally different than the Gulf states, which includes Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait. Politically, most of these Gulf states are really new countries. UAE was founded in 1971. Qatar and Bahrain got their independence in 1971. Kuwait in 1961. And Saudi Arabia is a modern kingdom formed in 1932. These states are largely monarchies built by ruling families. Also, the modern state of Israel is younger than Al Pacino. Now, Iran is old. It is a 3,000-year-old civilization, Persia. It had empires long before modern Europe existed. It has a very strong national identity with really deep roots. It has a very educated population. Iran also sits at one of the most strategic locations on Earth. It controls the northern side of the Strait of Hormuz, and that is where roughly 20% of the world's oil passes. Iran has essentially shut it down. And it's not just oil, it's things like fertilizer and medicine. And when the US says that it will use Navy ships to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is beginning to lay mines as well as use drones to bring down any ships in that area. Iran also continues to bomb the oil terminals of these GCC states. Another important thing to know about Iran is that it has this revolutionary ideology. Gulf monarchies, on the other hand, are just interested in economic development, stability, and making sure the ruling class stays in power. Iran's government, however, was born from a response against Western intervention. In 1953, the United States and Britain overthrew a democratically elected secular leader in Iran because he wanted to nationalize oil instead of having most of the profits go into British petroleum. This event shaped Iranian politics for generations to come. And the Islamic Revolution of 1979 was in part because of this history. So it is ideologically based on resisting this foreign interference. So now this brings me to the military structure of Iran. Now, before we get into the structure, I want to briefly talk about what happened in Afghanistan and the number of insurgents necessary to resist against the US military. The war in Afghanistan lasted 20 years. So at its peak, they had 90,000 fighters. These were mostly Taliban that were able to push away a successful US occupation. And all of this cost the US $2 trillion. Now let's look at Iran's numbers. So the Artesh, which is the conventional national military, that has about 350,000 active personnel. And then you have the IRGC, which is separate from the regular army. They have about 190,000 active personnel. And under this IRGC, you have the Quds Force. They are in charge of foreign operations and the proxy networks in the Middle East. So Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen. And then you have the Basij, which is the paramilitary force. The active personnel is around 90,000, and there are a bunch of reserve volunteers, up to 1 million. They are more in charge of internal security and protest suppression. So think of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was arrested by the Basij for not wearing a hijab. She was unalived by the Iranian government in custody, and this ignited the Woman Life Freedom movement. So Iranians' active military personnel is over 600,000. Compare that to the 90,000 that it took to successfully push out the US troops over 20 years. Combine that with how Iran is covered by mountains. So this is just a few of the reasons why no one has ever attacked Iran. And while there's nothing in the world that I would want more than a free Iran for my people, I have a pit in my stomach because I feel what is to come. There are very dangerous men on both sides just dancing with everybody's life. We as humans really need to grapple with how we got here, especially when almost every human I know wants the same things, wants to be cared, loved, take care of their family, their children, their friends, live in peace, live in harmony. When you take the propaganda away, it's almost always the same. All the while, the US taxpayers are paying $1 billion a day, when most are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have enough money for food, healthcare, and I think there are no more words left for me.
Iran is a nation of 90 million people that believe in the coming of the Mahdi. 90 million people who are ready to lay down their lives for Al-Mahdi. That's right. They're beautiful people, the Iranians. You don't see them starting no war with nobody. Ask Mr. Trump, in the history of Iran, show me where they attacked some other nation trying to take their wealth as you do, as America does. Show it to me. See, when you know the truth, see, can't nobody punk you unless you just want to be a punk.
Let me give you the document fact first. Because Farrakhan's warning about Iran are still on record, in speeches archived by the Nations of Islam available through the Final Call newspaper and multiple videos platforms, Minister Farrakhan has consistently warned American leadership about the dangers of war with Iran. He specifically referenced America's crushing national debt, which at the time stood at $23 trillion according to the US Treasury Department. This warning was direct. Mr. President, you are already $23 trillion in debt and you don't have any money to prosecute a war. He warned about Iran's asymmetric warfare capability. He said America's military is designed for 20th century warfare, massive conventional armies, aircraft carriers, nuclear deterrence, but Iran figured out that you can bankrupt a conventional military with unconventional tactics. According to reports from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Iran and its proxy forces have been deploying drones that cost between $20,000 to $50,000 each against US Navy destroyers worth $1.8 billion, firing missiles that cost $2 to $4 million each to intercept them. The math doesn't work. Iran is slowly bleeding the empire financially while America burns through resources trying to look invisible. He warned about Iran's geography. Iran's control the Strait of Hormuz. Approximately 21% of global petroleum flew through that narrow waterway. If Iran closes it, the global economy goes into crisis. Gas prices explode, inflation erupts, and America, already over $34 trillion in debt, cannot afford that economic shock. And now, according to multiple international news reports, including coverage from Reuters, Al Jazeera, and CBS News, Trump is seeking a ceasefire. According to multiple analyses quoted in major publications, the administration that declared victory is now quietly seeking an exit. Now, let me set up what Farrakhan actually said, because his analysis goes deeper than just military strategy. In archived speeches, he said, America's about to go to war, and when she goes to war, she wants black and brown bodies. Now you're useful. They don't give a damn about how black lives matter until they want to use black lives to accomplish their wicked ends. He warned that this war would be fought disproportionately by black and brown soldiers, while the wealthy who started it remain saved. Black Americans make up approximately 17% of active duty military, despite being 13% of the population. The prophecy about who bears the cost is documented in a casualty statistics. He also said, You can't win being a Turk. You can't win going around the world taking what doesn't belong to you. Your time is up. And now Trump is begging for a ceasefire. The Turk strategy failed. The time is up. The prophecy is fulfilled.
Iran is a nation of 90 million people that believe in the coming of the Mahdi. 90 million people who are ready to lay down their lives for Al-Mahdi. That's right. They're beautiful people, the Iranians. You don't see them starting no war with nobody. Ask Mr. Trump, in the history of Iran, show me where they attacked some other nation trying to take their wealth as you do, as America does. Show it to me. See, when you know the truth, see, can't nobody punk you unless you just want to be a punk.
Donald Trump is panicking as he has made yet another fatal error in the war against Iran, his catastrophic and unlawful war against Iran. He once again blinked and unilaterally extended the ceasefire deadline without Iran even agreeing to it. Iran said it would not participate in any negotiations with Donald Trump in Pakistan so long as Donald Trump maintained a naval blockade and continued to threaten Iran as the ceasefire deadline was about to expire, after Donald Trump was saying all day when he called into CNBC and other stenographer media entities, Trump was saying, I don't want the ceasefire anymore. I'm ready to bomb. I'm going to show how tough I am. We're going to obliterate them. And then Donald Trump said, I'm actually going to extend unilaterally the deadline of the ceasefire indefinitely. And so I guess we'll just figure it out. Now, the Wall Street Journal, a Murdoch paper, had the following headline in its opinion section: the Iranians take Trump for a sucker. How many times do they expect him to play this game before they reopen the Strait of...
Here's the verdict. Farrakhan wasn't guessing. He was reading patterns. He was understanding that empires built on theft always fail. He was applying historic analysis to present circumstances and arriving at conclusions that the mainstream refused to accept. And now, those conclusions are being confirmed in real time. Now that the ceasefire begging is documented, now that the economic consequences are measurable, now that the military limitations are exposed, the question isn't whether he was right. It's why America keeps ignoring the people who will tell them the truth. But let's talk about hypocrisy, because this is where Trump's ceasefire begging becomes historically devastating. Trump ran on American first and no more endless wars. He criticized previous administrations for military adventures in the Middle East. He said he will bring troops home. He said he will end the wars that were draining American resources. He said all this with conviction, with rallies, with flags. Then he assassinated Iran's supreme leader, started the biggest military conflict since Iraq, and within weeks is privately seeking a ceasefire while publicly claiming victory. So which is it? Are you against endless war or not? Are you for American strength or not? Because begging for a ceasefire after claiming you disseminated the enemy is not strength. That's the definition of endless war you promised to end. So here's my community charge to Black Americans. Listen to Farrakhan. Not because you agree with everything he has ever said, but because on this specific topic, the soldiers who died, disproportionately black and brown, died for a war that the people who started it are now trying to exit. That's not just a foreign policy failure, that's a moral crime, and Farrakhan named it before it happened. This is Chronicles for Black, and Minister Farrakhan nailed exactly why Trump feared Iran. The geography, the asymmetric warfare, the economic cost, the spiritual reckoning. Years before this bomb started falling, Trump ignored the warning, started the war, claimed victory and now begging for a ceasefire through back channels while publicly maintaining a vision of strength. The prophet was right. The empire is falling. The prophet was right. The empire is falling, and the ceasefire begging is the most powerful confirmation of prophetic accuracy that America has produced in decades.